Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm just going to drop the link to the code of conduct in case you need to review it if you haven't had a chance so far. And for today's agenda items, well, we don't have too many. So most of us have been quite busy with planning stuff, first with the budget, and then after the budget was done, planning for the various SIGCHI events that are coming up, and also awards updates that you'll see very soon. But in the 30 minutes or so that we have planned for today, we're going to start with an update from Tammy about setting up the communications committee. Then we have a discussion that Andrew will be leading, which is about alcohol at EC funded events. And then we have updates from Stacy regarding the SIGCHI Accessibility Committee. I think in the email that I sent out, they might have been swapped, the order of Andrew's and Stacy's items, but we can do it in this order. I think that's it. We'll see if there's any other miscellaneous updates that we want to talk about later on, and if we have any Q&A that come up from the audience here. So Tammy, over to you.
Hello, everybody. So I am, we are soliciting applications for the communications committee now. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to tell everybody about a little bit about the communications committee, and then solicit invitations for participation. So I have a few links I'm going to drop in the chat so you can see more information about it. So the communications committee is basically like the front door of SIGCHI. So we are the sort of gateway of communication between the executive committee and the SIGCHI membership. And so what that means is that we like send out all the emails, the announcements, of what's going on in the community, whether it's the EC or the general SIGCHI community. We are aiming to facilitate like engagement and participation. And so our vision is to support the types of communication, awareness, activities, and interactions that are needed to sustain and grow the SIGCHI research communities. And so on a day-to-day basis, that means sending emails that you receive about ongoing events in the EC, sharing those events and interactions via social media, the SIGCHI website and blog posts. And then also we want to really amplify the voices of SIGCHI members. So that means we share different events that members are carrying on, the insights and activities and things like that via social media and our website channels. And so over the next 2 to 3 years, we also want to engage in 2 types of special projects that will be ongoing. So the first one is we want to gather the diverse voices of SIGCHI. And so what we want to do here is we want to actually hold listening sessions to really understand who the diverse members of our community are and how they receive information about SIGCHI and how we can better help inform the whole SIGCHI membership about what is going on in the community. And so we want to hold listening sessions to understand more about the diverse voices of SIGCHI. And then gather patterns and things like and themes from those sessions that will then inform our updated communication strategy. And so then following from that, the second special project will be to do a SIGCHI EC awareness and invitation for involvement sort of movement. So what we want to do is develop a set of resources based on what we learn about how the community finds out information, what the community is curious about, what's going on. Then we want to take that and develop resources like videos or could be websites, it could be brochures, things like that, that help the broader community learn about the SIGCHI executive committee and the SIGCHI community more generally and how they can become involved. So those are the 2 special projects that we're engaging in. Part of that second project also involves revamping our website. So we'll be working on that. So we're looking for people to be on this committee and to help out with all of these efforts. And so we're looking specifically for people who are interested in content creation. So if you like, creating web content, getting people interested and engaged and sort of communicating about what's going on in the community, we want you to participate in this committee. If you like doing UX research, which many of us do, right? Like listening to people, gathering things about like how people interact and what they like to do, then we want you. If you know a lot about social and website platforms, right? You know all the ins and outs of navigating social media and creating websites, we would love your participation. Or if you know a lot about website infrastructure, so how the sites communicate and are organized and things like that, we would love for you to participate. And then also, if you have knowledge, interests about accessibility, we would love for you to participate as well to help us to interface with the accessibility committee and make sure that we are meeting all the needs of our community. So if you have any of those interests or expertise or something different that you think might be helpful, or you're just interested in learning more or participating, there is a link that I posted to submit an interest form to let us know that you are interested in participating in the committee. If you know of other people who may be interested, please share this, share away about this, because we would love to have 2 to 4 members of the committee that will help out with these activities and endeavors. So I think that is the conclusion of my announcements. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Tammy. And could you maybe repost the 2 links that you shared for some of the folks who just joined?
Oh, sure.
People who just joined. Okay, great. Andrew, you're next.
Thank you, Neha. We've been discussing a proposed policy regarding direct spending by the SIGCHI Executive Committee on alcohol. And so I wanted to quickly point out that this is if you recall, we went through the budget recently, and the budget has basically has 2 parts. One part has to do with conferences. That's the funds that conferences bring in and the conferences spend. And then the other part is sort of the EC direct spending part. So these are grants, these are events that we sponsor and so forth directly. So this proposal isn't about conferences. So this does not apply at all to conference spending. So fees go in and conferences spend on things. This is not what this applies to. We're talking about direct spending by the EC. Also, this proposal isn't about alcohol consumption per se. So this has nothing to do with whether alcohol should or should not be consumed at any given event. It is about the payment for that. So it isn't about saying we should not have alcohol at events. It's about who exactly will pay for the alcohol consumption. So the proposed policy would be that the SIGCHI Executive Committee will not spend funds on purchasing alcoholic beverages or reimbursing individuals or organizations for purchasing alcoholic beverages. And the motivation for it is that in most cases, alcohol is a luxury item. And so with my experience now on 2 executive committees, I think all of the people that I've worked with have this commitment to maintaining the financial health of SIGCHI in our community. So on the previous EC with Helena as president and Cliff as executive vice president, everybody worked really hard, and on the current EC as well to basically maintain financial health. And I see this, if we accept this, as basically a continuation of this commitment to the financial health of the community. So that's what I wanted to say, and I'm looking forward to feedback.
So if you have any comments, you can either raise your hand or you can drop them in the chat. I see, Cliff, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I do, yeah. Sorry to pop. Hey, EC, it's good to see all your faces. I popped in just because I saw this on the agenda and was wondering about it. And it's something I think about a lot. I was a little worried about conferences, so I'm glad to hear it's not. And it's, you know, it's one of those things. So for those who don't know me well, I am completely sober. I've been in recovery for 12 years. I do not drink at all. So I have no like dog in the fight in terms of promoting alcohol, but it is one of those where I've learned that there's so many cultural differences around alcohol consumption and so many different ways that people think about it. I'm loath to make blanket rules one way or the other about alcohol just because it is such a loaded thing. And one of the things I've been struggling with myself is like, you know, I could save money and, you know, personally don't care if there's no alcohol at all at an event, but there are other people who enjoy events in ways that are different than the way I enjoy them. And I try to be responsive to that. Volunteering for SIGCHI is tough. The EC has a hard job. I would be loath to see a rule that stops like the one small thing that we give to volunteers as an option. Like it's just, you know, it's not a big thing, but you know, a decent drink every now and then is something that I think is a great benefit for some folks for volunteering. And in terms of the fiscal responsibility, I can see that. And I have definitely been parts of EC events where people were not as fiscally responsible as they should have been with the alcohol purchases that they made. But at the same time, there's a phrase in English where we say penny wise, pound foolish, where it feels like it's focusing on a small detail of spending as opposed to making significant change. That's just, I wanted to give my take on that. And thanks all.
Thank you, Cliff. Stacy?
I just wanted to voice my support of Andrew's proposition. And one thing I'd like to add to the table, we can frame alcohol as a luxury or as a gift, as Cliff was suggesting. But it is a drug and it does cause loss of inhibition. It can be associated with aggression. And though it does not cause sexual assault, it can be a major contributing factor in sexual assault. And these are professional events. I think it is absolutely reasonable to limit our direct support as an EC for EC events of purchasing alcoholic beverages.
Thank you, Stacey and Kale.
Yeah, I ultimately just agree with Andrew's proposition here. I feel there's, if it's being used in a medicinal or culturally grounded way, that's one thing. We are currently grappling with a lot of aspects of sexual assault, reckless behavior. There's a level of comfort, I think, for people who have been addicts of alcohol. And I think that, you know, as someone who myself, I drink, albeit occasionally, it's something that can be done to help create a more comfortable atmosphere for more folks. There's an enjoyment factor, but I rarely, on a personal level of praxis, I rarely weigh that like enjoyment as more important than like the general comfort, safety, and security of different rooms and spaces that I'm in to the best of my ability. And so I think at least on an EC level or for specific SIGCHI events, it makes a lot of sense. And it's been something that has gone a long way toward making a lot of folks that I know that I've talked to within the community more comfortable.
And Matt.
But just to pick up on what Andrew was saying, what we're discussing here isn't something that's going to widely affect the SIGCHI community. So if there is a debate that needs to be had in that regard, because what I'm hearing, Andrew, from your proposal is one which is very much focused around fiscal responsibility, which I absolutely agree with. And, you know, if you go somewhere and there's a you're provided with a nice meal, which one has been, you know, in terms of EC and previously, buying a drink for oneself, that's, you know, that's fine by me and absolutely right. But I'm just wondering, because I followed that the Twitter strand, that was it, who sent that out? It was oh, you have to remind me.
The thread that Katie had started on Twitter last year, that's what I shared with somebody else.
I mean, I'm just raising, if that is something the community wants to discuss more widely, and how that might impact on general chairs like Simone and Cliff's decisions, that's a bigger thing, isn't it? And there are lots of important questions there. Cliff's raised some, Kale's raised some, and so has Stacey. So there clearly is a debate going on in the wider academic community, and maybe we should at least have that debate and make some decisions. But I guess, Andrew, right now the decision is about, as you said, this quite focused question.
Thanks, Matt. Susanna?
Yeah, I understand that this is only for EC funded events. So it doesn't, I think that was Andrew was saying, it's not for conferences, because if you do a conference in the south of France, it might be a little bit strange if you, for a few hundred maybe participants of a conference, you start collecting the €3 for a glass of wine, which is there even. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Sort of just for the, so just make clear this is not affecting conferences, which actually in turn is not solving the question which we just heard on the question of what happens at conferences. So I think I would personally like not to blame it to alcohol too strongly. I do see the strong relationship of that, but it also, to some extent, I think puts everybody who has a glass of wine in their hands into that corner. I think I also do not want to do that. I think we have to care. SIGCHI cares fully for any kind of harassment or assault that are related to our conferences, and we have to do everything. But as I said, so this would not apply for conferences in general. This would rather be on the conference chair's side. For example, they can easily limit the amount, like for every interactivity. I remember you get just 2 vouchers for a drink and that's it. So there's no way that you can really get drunk in an interactivity space. It's more the drink you prefer, and it's on the, mostly it's on the same cost level of as a soda drink also. Just to mention that, because as a VP conferences, of course, I have to look at also the community effects and the different cultural differences. Maybe over the years, we are generally developing into that policy. I'm sure many of you that are not maybe, let's say, my age, I remember the times when smoking was everywhere, and now it has disappeared. You know, I was surprised that it happened, and now if you go to a restaurant where there's smoking, you think, oops, that's happening still. And I think probably in some countries it's still there, but it has done a major change, and maybe the same thing happens with alcohol in some sense. It happened with meat, you know, it happens anyway. We are part of also a transition of how we offer what we consume in general, just as a comment from my side.
Thank you, Susanna. Just before I pass it on to Susan, if there's anyone else from the community, if you have thoughts on this, we'd like to hear them, even if it doesn't impact you directly, but you think you'd like to voice different thoughts, we'd like to hear them. Susan?
Just a very quick point. Every other professional organization that I'm part of or have ever been part of has the same basic policy about funded events, such as EC funded events or SIGCHI funded events. I'm sorry, anyway. And so I don't think this would be an outlier kind of thing, especially since it doesn't, we're not talking about conferences at this point.
Thank you, Susan. And Ted?
Yeah, hi, this is the first time you guys have heard from me. I think we're all saying it's a matter of amount. I mean, I've watched as the SIGCHI EC at times has been obviously flagrant in being excessive in other people's eyes. And excessive is the thing that everybody's concerned about here. And so maybe it's all about something, some boundaries. Is it one or is it two drinks? I can drink one half a drink. That's about all I can do. But there's a difference between. I mean, and by the way, if you're self-medicating, the word medication came up earlier. That's not something that we're in the business of medicating our REC, certainly.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I think we can move on. Andrew, is there anything you'd like to close with?
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, so moving on, Stacy, you're up next.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm juggling a lot here. My name is Stacy Branham. I am your adjunct chair for accessibility. And I am delighted today to share with you a really quick update about what our committee, the Accessibility Committee, has been up to. So the Accessibility Committee, if some of you may already know, is brand new. We actually formed in July of last year. And our primary goal is to try to create a SIGCHI community in which people with disabilities can participate at all levels, as leaders, as authors at our conferences, as participants in all of our activities. And so when we first got started in July, we really focused on gathering our committee of 15 and organizing ourselves into 3 working groups. We are the Policies and Strategic Planning Working Group, which I organize, the Conference Assessment Committee, Working Group, which is organized by Emmeline Goulet, and the Conference Guidelines Working Group, which is organized by Michael Crabb. After we organized ourselves, we realized we needed to deal with the fact that we didn't really have any documentation about what it is we're here to do and how we do it. So we first began by developing a set of bylaws. And we're really thankful to the SIGCHI Steering Committee for having an excellent example of how to self-govern. In any event, we developed a set of bylaws, and I'm greatly thankful to Anushka Zulyomi and Zulema Morgado Ramirez, who really took the lead there. And just as a couple of highlights from that document, one of the things I think is great is that we refresh our volunteers, about half of them, every 18 months. So in fact, in a few months, we're going to be reaching out to the community and seeking more people who might want to participate in making our community accessible. And we also have added some guidelines that encourage us to enable participation of people with chronic illness or other disabilities that may make it difficult to participate in person. All right, so we got some bylaws. The next thing that we focused on through November and early into this year was really gathering information from our community and from beyond so that we can act in an evidence-based way. So just as a couple examples, Arthur Thiel's been amazing at seeking resources from SIG Access and Access SIGCHI and even other ACM, SIGs and IEEE communities, et cetera, about how to run our conferences better. And he's working on compiling a resource list. And then as another example, Sylvia Bernice Fajardo Flores. She's been interviewing accessibility chairs and other conference organizers, trying to learn more about their pain points and ways we could better support them with our documentation. I'd also like to point out that we've been developing a way to share some of this information with the community. So we have a new website. Thank you to Earl Huff Jr. who put that together for us. You can access it at sigchi.org/accessibility. I'll go ahead and share that in the chat. And I also was busy making a baby during that time, so good products. Okay, almost there. I just wanted to share that our most recent activity has been developing a set of short-term goals, thinking about like a 6-month time horizon and what is it that we want to accomplish during these times. Each of us has several sub-goals, but I'll just pull out one example for brevity. So the Policies and Strategic Planning Committee is thinking through ways we could potentially take some of the weight off the shoulders of people who are organizing our conferences and support them in providing accessibility services and possibly even paying for them. So we're just going to start with a pilot program of centralizing some resources here in the executive committee. We're starting with DIS 2022, whose organizers have agreed to help us pilot this. And we're specifically focusing on generating PDFs that are accessible, because currently the TAPS process ends up producing PDFs that people who are blind, people who use screen readers cannot actually access. So many thanks to Lan Wang and some of her colleagues who actually piloted this at WISC last year. All right, Eleanor says it's time to finish. So I'll simply point you to our website, and also you can contact me at any time at SIGCHI-access@acm.org. The most important thing to take away from this meeting is that we're here and we care, and we want to engage you and hear from you and work together to make our community accessible. So please feel free to direct any questions our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Any comments, any feedback from anyone about this? I see that there's some comments from the audience. Well, Tammy, amazing co-presenter, I agree. Kudos from Kale. Chad also mentioned it's surprising to hear the TAPS ended up generating inaccessible PDFs. I thought that was one of its goals. I don't know if you want to say anything else about TAPS.
I can add to that, and then maybe Pejman wants to follow up with more details, but it appears that the automatic generation of a PDF from a tech is actually generating a PDF that doesn't have any of the metadata like headings, and actually words do not have any spaces in between them. So it's really incomprehensible when it's read aloud by a screen reader, and it's impossible to navigate. But I know that there have been several dedicated members working on this. So Julie Williamson, who was previously the PUBS chair, has been working hard on this problem, but it's been a couple of years and there's still no solution. And so that's why we're working to remediate PDFs in the short term. Pejman, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you explained everything clearly, but I think the whole point is we are aware that there is an issue and we are trying to work with a stakeholder to find a solution for it.
Okay, thank you. I like Helena's comment here. Most important part of that presentation is that it is never one or even two people. It is an entire committee. Great job, giving kudos to those who are doing the work. And yes, I think Stacy sets a great example for us. Are there any other questions or comments that folks would like to bring up in the audience? Very quickly, I want to just share that we've been busy setting up different committees. So in our next meeting, we're hoping that we'll hear some updates from Naomi, who just set up the Asia Steering Committee for SIGCHI. So making some changes to the earlier Asia Development Committee that we had. And then Matt Jones, who's our VP Chapters, has also been busy setting up the Chapters Committee. And we're excited to bring folks from the different committees together at CHI to see how we can work together on our local and global / regional goals. That said, I think all our other cycles are being spent in just the activities that we're going to be busy with at CHI, and hopefully we will see some of you there. I think that's it.
Hey, can I make one just really brief announcement?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think you may have seen, if you look at Simona's background, she has a really cool SIGCHI turns 40 logo background. We do have those available on the SIGCHI website. And so there was a post that we made about it. I can also like share a link to them, but we encourage the community to use, we have lots of different versions of them. So we want you to use them away, find creative ways to post and share them and things like that. So that was it.
Thanks, Tammy. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next month.